Hello everyone, this is Stephen Balch, your instructor for Introduction to Microeconomics at Ozarka College. In this video, what I'm going to do is give you a demonstration of how to calculate the marginal utility per dollar and the consumer equilibrium point, which is basically what you're going to have to do for question 4, which is problem 7.2 on page 141 in the textbook. Alright, so in the textbook on that particular question or that problem, it's going to give you a 3-column table. It's going to show you the number of units in the first column, and then the marginal utility per unit of X, good X, and then the last column is going to show the marginal utility for each unit of good Y. Okay, and so you're going to have to take that information from the table, and I've actually included in my Ozarka on the assignment page a table that I would like you to complete for this particular problem on your assignment. But basically what I'm going to do here in this video is show you by using a very similar set of numbers where you have a good X and good Y, and you have marginal values for each one, for each unit of each good. I'm going to show you the process that you would go through, what you're going to need to do for determining the consumer equilibrium point. In other words, how much of each good are we going to purchase to maximize our utility given the fixed amount of income that we have to spend on those two goods. Okay, this is just basically a simplified model that that we use in economics to kind of better understand the consumer buying process. You know, what we actually go through when we're trying to maximize our utility with consumption. Okay, so basically here what I've done is I've got in the first column the number of units 1 through 5, and then I've got the marginal utility for each unit of good X, and then for right now let's skip over the marginal utility per dollar. I'm going to show you that in just a minute, but on the right hand side of the table I've got the marginal utility for good Y, for each unit of good Y. Alright, so and that's basically what it's going to give you on this problem in your textbook. It's going to give you the number of units, it's going to give you the marginal utility for X, marginal utility for Y. And then what you're going to need to do is complete the table that I provided for you, where you're going to calculate the marginal utility per dollar for each unit of good X, and do the same thing for good Y, and then we'll use those values, that information, and I'll show you how you go about determining how much of each good we're going to purchase in order to maximize our utility given the income that we have. Alright, so what you do basically is very simple. It's already given you the marginal utility for each unit. In other words, how much additional utility we're getting from consumption of each additional unit of good X. And so all you're going to do is, in this example that I've done, I've said that the price of good X is $5. So all you're going to do is take these marginal values, and each one of them you're going to divide by 5, and that's what I've done here in this third column of the table. So in other words, the marginal utility per dollar for the first unit of good X is $2.40. It's just 12 divided by 5. Okay, and then the second one is 9 divided by 5. It's just the marginal value divided by the price. That's $1.80, and all the way down. So you just basically divide the marginal utility value, each one of those, by the price to get the marginal utility per dollar. And the reason that we do that is because in order to determine how much of each good we're going to consume in order to maximize utility, we have to make sure that good X and good Y are on equal playing field. Okay, the price of good X is $5, whereas the price of good Y is $4. So in order to kind of equalize those, we have to look at the marginal utility over the price. All right, the marginal utility per dollar spent. All right, and that way we're able to kind of look at those on equal terms and figure out, by looking at the marginal utility per dollar, we can figure out where our consumer equilibrium or utility maximization point is. Okay, so once you do that for good X, you're also going to do the same thing for good Y. And the price of good Y is $4. So you're just going to take the marginal value here for good Y, divide it by 4, each one of those, all the way down through all 5 units of the good, and you'll get those values. Okay, and that's what I've done here. Now, on your when you're doing this problem out of the textbook here, that's similar to this one, you'll want to make sure that you do just like I did and show your work. Make sure that you actually show what you're dividing into what, and what calculations you're doing to get each calculation along the way. Okay, so just make sure that you're showing your work just like I'm doing here. All right. Now that we have these values, it's very simple. All we're going to do to figure out the consumer equilibrium point is, let me go down here just a little bit. Right here on this slide, I've basically shown you each step along the way. It's not it takes a little bit of time to figure out where the consumer equilibrium point is, because basically what you're doing is you're looking at the marginal utility per dollar for each of those values that we just calculated there for good X and good Y, and we're starting with unit 1 there of each good, and we're basically looking to see which unit has the highest marginal utility per dollar. And in this case, our first purchase with the $27 that we have, that's what we're assuming, that's one of our assumptions, is we've got $27 to spend on these 2 goods. So our first move is going to be to buy the first unit of good X, because it has a $2.40 marginal utility per dollar, whereas the first unit of good Y is only $2. So basically all you're going to do here is keep going, move by move, to figure out how much of each good you're going to purchase to maximize your utility, which is called the consumer equilibrium point. So, and then you also, after each move, you've got to subtract your income that you have minus how much you just spent on that unit of that good. So, for example, after the first move, when we buy that first unit of good X, we're going to have $22 left. We're going to have it's going to be $27, what we started with, minus the $5 that we spent on unit 1 of good X, and so we're going to be left with $22. And then the second move, you'll notice, the second move is going to be the one that has the highest marginal utility per dollar is going to be the first unit of good Y. And that's because if we wouldn't go to the second unit of good X yet, because the first unit of good Y gives us a $2 value, whereas the second unit of good X is only $1.80. So again, we're trying to maximize the value that we get, the utility. So we're going to buy the first unit of good Y, and so that's going to be $22 minus $4. So we've still got $18 to spend. Okay. Then our third move is going to be to buy the second unit of good X. Again, all you're doing is looking to see which unit of each good is going to be the best for us to purchase, basically with the highest, whatever the highest marginal utility per dollar is, that's the move that we're going to make. Okay, So since the second unit of good Y has a value of $1.80, and the second unit of good, the second unit of good X has a value of $1.80, the second unit of good Y is only $1.50. So our third move is going to be to buy the second unit of good X. Okay? And so when we do that, we're going to take $18 minus $5 for that purchase. So we have $13 left. Okay? Now, all you're going to do then is the fourth move is you're going to look again to see which purchase, which good is going to give us the highest marginal utility per dollar. So after that second unit of good Y, or good X that we purchase on that third move, our fourth move is going to be to buy the second unit of good Y, because it has a value of $1.50, whereas the third unit of good X is only $1.20. Again, we're trying to maximize. We're looking at the highest values here on each move. So that's going to basically be $13 minus $4 to buy good Y, that second unit of good Y. So we're going to have $9 left, okay, from our budget. All right, then the fifth move is going to be to buy the third unit of good X, all right, because it has a value of $1.20, whereas the third unit of good Y is only valued at $1, okay? So it's going to make, in order to maximize our utility, we're going to buy, on our fifth move, we're going to buy the third unit of good X, okay? And then, so we've got $9 left, minus the $5 that we spend to buy that third unit of good X. So now we have $4 left, okay? And then, again, all you do is look at the marginal utility per dollar again. The next one, the next highest one, is the third unit of good Y. It has a value of $1, whereas the fourth unit of good X only has a value of 80 cents. So we're going to buy that third unit of good Y, and then after we purchase that, we're going to have no money left, because we started out with $4 after the fifth move. We had to purchase that third unit of good Y, which cost $4. So now we have exhausted our budget, and now it's easy to see that basically our consumer equilibrium point is going to be to purchase 3 units of good X and 3 units of good Y. Okay? And just like I just showed you is exactly the process that you're going to need to do when you're working through that problem on page 141 in your textbook. All right? So just follow along. Just, basically do just like I did. Make sure that you're showing all your work. Show all of your moves just like I did up here. I want to see all your work on this problem to make sure that you're actually, going through the process. Okay? All right. If you have any questions about it, just let me know, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have. I will talk to you next time. Thank you.